Lance, over to you.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think the report is quite comprehensive. There was just a few things that I wanted to outline before councillors ask questions. Obviously, the report outlines all the work that's been done by this council and Sport Waikato over the past 2 years, really looking at a needs analysis, really turning into fact what has been probably known anecdotally for some time around recreation facilities, indoor rec, and there's a couple of items after this, there's aquatics and also sports fields. So really it's showing that currently there's an inadequate indoor recreation space within the city, that the current facilities won't meet the needs of a growing city and the requirements of various sporting codes and recreational groups. It also shows that the facilities across the city are reasonably eclectic. There are a bunch of not fit for purpose facilities, the sort of 1 to 3 courts, which, looking at Sport New Zealand work, is not ideal for delivery of the indoor recreation needs. There's only one fit-for-purpose community indoor sports facilities, which is provided by Hamilton City Council, which is the Te Rapa Sports Ground. Admittedly, that's got a bunch of limitations. Some schools have facilities. Generally, they're very helpful to sporting codes, but there's differing use and management scenarios related to that, and council generally aren't involved in those. And those provide opportunities as well as challenges for the codes. You can see from the report that the Regional Sports Facilities Plan, which was a project led by Sport Waikato and backed by the Merrill Forum, recommends that there's 2 forecourt multi-use facilities needed within the city. One's essentially needed in the near future, and another one's needed probably 10 years out. What we've done in the report is tried to outline what the realistic options are for council if it decides it needs to be in this space going forward. There's probably 4 options. As one of them is obviously do nothing. Then there's 3 other options which we've outlined in the paper, which are you can see there's a possibility of the WinTech, what I call the WinTech option, with a Hamilton City Indoor Recreation Trust. That has been something which council has seen in different forms through the last 2 LTPs, and a couple of LTPs ago there was some funding in the LTP for that, and then the last one there wasn't. So we've actually re-engaged with the trust and also with WinTech to see if that option's still live. As you can see from the paper, that option, there is still some possibility. Essentially talks about a $7.5 million 3-court facility at the Avalon campus at WinTech. The contribution from WinTech itself would be the land and car parking and some ancillary services like that. Suggesting that council provides $2.5 million and the other 2/3 be raised from the community. And I think when we say community, it might even be, I think, where Councillor Gallagher was alluding to in the debate before lunch around not only philanthropic and community funding trusts, regional sporting organisations, but also other territorial councils that might have some of their residents actually using those facilities. There's another option in the paper which is around extending the facility that we own, the Te Rapa Sports Drome, and you can see that's around $6.5 million, gives another 2 courts. It'd be fair to say that that the feedback we get from users that that facility has some limitations. We have spent some money on it in recent years around ventilation systems because of humidity problems in there and people sweating and the building sweating and that sort of thing, and moisture getting on the floor and it becoming dangerous. So we've attended to some of that. So there is an option in there as basically extending what we've got now that council runs. There's something in the paper from December, from pages 207 onwards. It said that I would report back on some discussions with the Establishment Board of Trustees for the Rototuna High School. So there's been quite a bit of work done by my team liaising with the design and construction team for that high school, and you're probably aware there was a sod turning ceremony for construction of the junior high just last Saturday, and there was some media interest in that, and I think Her Worship the Mayor and maybe possibly some other councillors attended that. My team's been dealing with the design team of MOE, and in more recent months, just before Christmas, we've engaged with the Board of Trustees, with whom Megan Campbell's the chair of that Board of Trustees. We have been having discussions around something that this council over the past 3 years has had some discussion and dialogue around as shared facilities. So could taxpayer and ratepayer and community actually partner in facilities going forward? And I think that moves into the space where Local Government New Zealand put that paper out yesterday just around funding infrastructure going forward, and it won't just be councils. The good news is that those discussions that I've had with the Board of Trustees and with the chair of the board ongoing is that they're very open to a partnership model. Obviously this is a significant investment by the government in probably one of the largest high schools that will be built in New Zealand over the next 5 to 10 years, and obviously in a growing area of our city, and in an area where we have a structured plan and we're going through a comprehensive development plan process with the developers, just the Rototuna suburban village there. So their junior high school is to be completed by pretty much this time next year. So construction's all go, and we've been helping with roads and that sort of thing. And they've had funding approved by Cabinet. The other news is that they have decided that the senior high school will be completed by early 2018, which means that the school roll would go from around about 1,300 kids up to well over 2,000 students by 2018. So in the design of the school, I've actually got a diagram I can hand out just around the design of the school. In our discussions with the Board of Trustees, they are very much open to this community partnership, looking at a different way of working, opening up the facilities of the school to the community after school hours, and they're looking at that on a range of fronts. And our discussions have been essentially around indoor recreation space, sports fields, outdoor courts, but since engaging with them, it's also moved towards talking about the library there, and also they have some performing arts space that are being a black box theatre and another performing arts space within the school as well, which they're quite keen for community groups to be able to use in the northeast. So at the moment these are relatively recent discussions, but very positive. The Board of Trustees is quite committed to pursuing this with Council if we're of a mind to potentially partner in some of those things which I discussed. So the proposal around recreation facility is probably the key capital outlay that they would be encouraging Council to be involved with. The design for the school, we've encouraged them to, rather than having 2 one-court indoor facilities and one in the junior high school and one in the senior high school, is saying, well, why don't you put in something which should actually service both schools? And at this stage, I might just hand out the diagram's up there, but if you're like me, I can't read that properly without my glasses on, so I'll get Mary to hand those out. So the design team, with the approval of the Board of Trustees, has designed a 2-court indoor facility, which is joined to the senior high school, which is on the left-hand side of the diagram. It's that box in the middle there, and the hatched bit with potential HCC sporting complex on it. So they're designing it so that there could be another 2 courts added on to that 2-court facility. They'll have changing rooms and what have you in the 2 courts that MOE is funding. And then they're designing it so that the wall on the end can be removed at a later time, if need be, to build on another 2 courts. Now, the overall cost of going to a 4-court facility would be all up around about, estimated at $16 million. So they will build the 2 courts, and then the other 2 courts will is really up to council to consider that today, and potentially the timing of that, if you're favourable to that proposal. So they're looking for really it'd be around $8 million investment from potentially council, sporting organisations, the community, and potentially a neighbouring territorial authority. But mindful of the fact that we have, fiscal constraints, and that timing around this may not meet their contractual arrangements with Arrow International, who are building the junior and senior high schools. They've locked in a good price, very good tender price, which runs for up until the end of 2017. If as the paper outlines, the standards for the building are reasonably high, and the MOE now has quite high standards around longevity and durability of buildings, especially after what's happened in Christchurch. So they probably build, what they're building there is probably a little bit higher spec than a couple of the other options that we've mentioned in the paper. I wouldn't say it's gold plated, it's probably bronze to silver plated, if you wanted to put it in that terminology. But you would have a high quality facility. And you can see from this model here that they've also reconfigured their court space, so that's at the front of the school, in between the 2, the junior high and the senior high, which looks like an atrium, and that's actually a library. So the library would be at the front of the school, and they're quite keen on that library being available for the community to use, as well as a bit of maybe a pop-up library as an adjunct to our library service.
Excuse me, Lance, have you got a pointer so that we can, I'm not quite sure what you mean with the library.
I need a pointer.
Thank you.
No. Star? Okay. Right, there. So the library in there, just around there.
Yep.
And you can see the other facilities, court space there, and then obviously that's the Waikato Expressway, and behind it there's quite a big knoll there, if you've ever been up to the site. And I know we went on a site visit sort of up that way, but it was pouring down with rain sometime last year. So they've got a couple of 3-quarter size fields, a couple of football fields there, and a rugby field there as well. And they've got a potential for an early childhood centre there as well. Just bearing in mind that this land over here down the bottom, below the collector road, is the land that we have purchased for the Rotatuna sports fields. So there's an opportunity to work with the school in partnership around a number of recreation and community services and facilities that council currently provides. And what I've gleaned from the chair is that if we looked at libraries, for example, they wouldn't be looking for any capital input. Might be some arrangement around how it would operate, and provision of books and other materials, as well as maybe 1 or 2 librarians. So they're quite keen for this facility to be used by the community. I think the other thing you need to be mindful of is that this school's catchment, obviously it's near the northern boundary of our city with the Waikato district. The catchment also will be grabbing a whole bunch of students from Gordonton out towards, not quite towards Morrinsville, but not that far out. So rural areas within the Waikato district and further up north of Horsham Down. So there's an opportunity here that presents itself, and if you look at the paper, the WinTech opportunity doesn't actually have any capital funding put forward by WinTech at this stage. So in our discussions with one of their GMs, Graham Thomas, and others, are really just been refreshing discussions we had a couple of years ago. So they've got some interest as well. And then, as I said, we've got the other option of the Te Rapa Sports Drone. Obviously, this seems an expensive option, but what we've suggested in the recommendation is that council commits to funding a bit further out in the LTP for 50% of the cost of those additional 2 courts, and also an operational grant each year. So it wouldn't be about us owning the facility, it would be about, we'd have to work through an operational model, but the discussions I've had would be either the school run it or a trust runs it. So I wouldn't see that Hamilton City Council would actually run it. So this is something which has happened with arrangements between councils, community groups and other educational institutes throughout New Zealand. Just bearing in mind that Board of Trustees have quite independent powers and take some guidance from the MOE and the Education Act, but they do make their own decisions. My view is that this is probably the optimum option, but in the December paper we also recommended that, probably similar to the discussion around the Founders Theatre, that we work with Sport Waikato and actually do a bit of a feasibility study on these options that we've looked at around location design, funding models, that's both CapEx operational and the operational model going forward, so, and bring that back to council. So we're suggesting that council would look at, consider half of the funding for this, and also recommending that this be included in the LTP in the 2022, which my understanding is that it can fit into that wedge of capital funding that's available there without affecting the 200% debt to revenue ratio. So there is an opportunity, and there's an opportunity here to have further discussions with other potential partners and some time to actually look at getting funding for that other $4 million and work that through. Obviously, that would be with Community Trust, Philanthropics, Waikato District Council, regional sporting organisations, maybe Sport NZ and also Sport Waikato. So we think there's a real possibility for something good to come out of this as a partnership. I'll leave it there, Your Worship. I'm sure there's a bunch of questions.
Okay, we'll go to questions. Councillor, just want to pick up on something Councillor Mallard asked, which I thought was a good question, because we've got the spreadsheet and some councillors in the break were asking what, all these are unfunded, so where do they fit in terms of the debt to revenue ratio signed off this morning, the draft budget? So I just want to get that clear, because we could be flailing around a bit in the dark, and I want to make sure we've got the accurate factual information rather than guessing. So can you just confirm with us? We've got 10 items on this, so where does it all land?
Okay, we've tested that over lunchtime as well, and if we ran down the list and went as far as item number 6, we could fit those into the wedge that exists towards the tail of plan. We would not be using all of that up, we would only be using part of it, and we'd stay within the 200% debt to revenue ratio over that time. The big difference is that once we hit...
Paul, which is the last one? LED, is it? Did you say
LED?
So LED could get Everything down to and including LED.
The big difference from there is items 7
right?
through...
Is that correct?
That's correct. Items 7 through to 10, in fact, have impacts on the first year and are operational in nature, so they would be measured against the balancing the books target, and therefore those would push us back into a deficit against that target. Therefore, they don't actually fit without taking something out. That would
Sorry,
also
that-
have to be operational.
So 7 to 10 affect the balancing the books of 2016.
That's correct.
Okay. So if we put those in, because they're operational in nature, that could impact on that, and we would have to adjust some operational budget to make that fit.
Either adjust some operational budgets or accept the fact that council would not be making that work in 2016.
All right, thanks. That's clarified that. Thank you. So questions on this report on indoor recreational facilities to Lance. Councillor Mallett.
Lance or Paul may know the answer to this one. When you, if council, say this is X million dollars and we pay half of it, how do we treat that in terms of assets and things like that? Because we don't own it.
So
Do we
if it
depreciate
is
it?
not owned and it's treated as a grant, then it would be operational in nature and would come off the surplus for that particular year.
So it'd just be a huge big whack on that year.
That's correct.
Can I say the MOE have mentioned that they do have joint ownership arrangements for some of these facilities. There's also arrangements where council own facilities which are on MOE land. We've got one, the Gallagher Aquatic Centre. So they're flexible, but also I've been thinking a bit wider than that. Obviously, if you become an owner, you end up with liability too. So,
Although they're expecting some sort of operational grant anyway, aren't they?
that's correct.
Which I
But
assume would meet that.
look, the devil's in the detail of negotiating that. The 120 grand is not all the operational costs. This will generate some revenue, so there's a model being worked on, and we've had some consultants work on that, looking at best practice models and that sort of thing. And obviously, you know, the school would have to pick up their fair share too.
Okay, Councillor Coulson?
Lance, and it gets down to the detail, but if this is something that we contribute to, and both operationally and capital-wise, what sort of use or priority would we be looking for, or would we be able to afford going forward?
So the discussion is that the school would use it within school hours, and probably half an hour after school and that sort of thing, and then the facility, the majority of the use on the weekends and after hours would be for community use. Remembering that sometimes that overlaps, because some of the students at the school might play school sports and then they play club sport as well. So, but you're right. The devil is in the detail, and there's different models around New Zealand on that. And I'll be quite frank that some local authorities have probably got a good deal for the community out of that, and others probably haven't got such a good deal. So the school's got the better deal. So. Talking to Tauranga and Queenstown Lakes District Council and colleagues at those councils that have entered into these arrangements, they have said, really set the ground rules on the use, the level of community use, establish that right at the start and actually get that in writing really quickly, get that agreement before you go anywhere near making grants and capital payments and that sort of thing.
I think that's pretty important. I mean, not only from a community use, but I mean having a forecourt facility, which would be something that the city would not only use but regionally. I mean, I think of national championships, sometimes those are a week long, whether it's age group or full. I mean, from a netball or maybe volleyball perspective, we can't hold such events in Hamilton because we don't have such a facility, but that would be part of the considerations as well. It's not just having the practices, etc., after school or over the weekend. It would be the possibility of running a national tournament which might span 4, 5, 6, 7 days. So, I mean, would we be able to to use the facility for such things as well. I mean, that's great economic benefit to the city too, when you've
Absolutely.
got sports teams
Yeah.
staying for a week, etc.
Yeah, and I think everyone, everyone tends to look at high performance sport like, the Magic and Chiefs rugby and that sort of thing. But I think, if you just look at what happens at the hockey centre down at Innes Common, we get a lot of regional champs there.
Yes.
Colgate Games at Pirate Stadium Athletics, 5,000 kids with their parents. All the motels are full, all the hotels are full. I don't want to overstate this, but it would add to that, it would allow that. Unfortunately, Councillor McPherson's not here. He's involved in volleyball tournaments, and he would say that, having it split between 1 and 2 court facilities over 7 or 8 different venues around Hamilton is really challenging for organisers, and quite often it puts them off, and it puts off the national sporting organisations actually having those sorts of age group or provincial or national tournaments. So I think this would open up an opportunity.
Great.
And Councillor Gallagher?
Come back, the pop-up library you talked about being built in the front of both schools. Where's that in the sort of kind of staging, and how do you see, just repeat for us the involvement we could have in that?
Right, so they've got, basically they've got a mirrored school, so the way they've designed it, and obviously the junior high kicks in first and then the senior high. So that'll be a library that's shared by both schools. They've located it at the front so that the community could use it, and I think you visited the Rickerton Library in Christchurch, which I have with our Director Sue. Fantastic community model. Even got a cafe in it, which is well used. It's really gelled the community between middle socioeconomic and lower socioeconomic areas. But what could happen is that model there has council librarians and school librarians in there, but they work as a virtual team. I thought it was a bit unusual actually, but here we've had initial discussions on how that might work. Like we'd have to do a lot more detailed work around that, but it would probably be, as I said before, probably us looking at providing some of the operational resource, and so that the community could, and you'd have to work out whether or not the community can actually visit it during school hours, or can they only visit after school hours, all that sort of stuff. But the board's really open to having those discussions and working that through. And I think that's something that could probably happen, before the indoor rec centre happened, if there's a mind there and there's a partnership worked out.
So, in terms of a memorandum of understanding, what I would want to see is literally an absolute understanding of what we're getting a potential Rickerton model. Of course, what that means, very significantly, is that there's some form of library service, may not be gold, but it'll be good silver, and particularly if we can negotiate daytime access in terms of, one door. I mean, I've seen it in Rickerton, it works. Secondly, relative to the ratepayer investment, what you're getting for the money. So this is fair to say this is the classic rate pocket, tax pocket, working to achieve an outcome, and presumably, without putting words in your mouth, getting an outcome which, if it was left just to us, we couldn't fund.
No, and if you cut to the chase on this, it would probably take the pressure off, building, a library at the Rotorua Town Centre, which, if you look at our situation is challenging and the cost involved, and which we're actually, suggesting is in years 10 to 30 of the 30-year infrastructure plan rather than the LTP.
And so obviously we put this proposal into the LTP proposal, then we listen to the North East community as to what they think of this particular model. Obviously it seems to me, because one of the things we've hit as a council over many years is the emergence of the North East as a poor relative in terms of some of these facilities. Don't want to put words in your mouth. Is that a fair summary?
Well, we get feedback. Obviously, and councillors get that too. A lot of it's anecdotal, of course, but I think, we do have to look at, and this whole LTP is looking at growth going forward and the core needs of the community and beyond that. So it's a key growth area.
All right.
Final question, have we had discussions yet? Because I'm aware even in this room, there are many people who live in Horsham Downs, could be sending their kids to this school, but certainly will get benefit where are we at with the Waikato District Council, and to a lesser extent Matter in terms of them coming to the table on this, you know, in relative terms?
I've had one initial engagement with one of their general managers,
Yeah.
just to highlight what the regional sports facilities plan outcomes have been, and which have been ticked off by the Merrill Forum, and also just highlighting that there is a potential opportunity here. It'd be fair to say that you know, probably a little bit late in their LTP discussions at the moment, but what we're suggesting might allow more time for that discussion to happen. And for the Waikato District to, you know, probably a little bit behind us on a recreational facilities strategy or strategies. So I think, you know, we've started the conversation.
Because this is Rotorua, Horsham Downs, Gordonton facility.
Okay, so Councillor Mallett, you had some more questions?
Thank you. What is our legal, moral obligation to provide these facilities? It says here, indoor recreation facilities are not a legal requirement.
I think, well, legally, the Act, and I can't quote it, but it talks about having a regard to the needs of the community and
So it's just a generic...
yeah, in regards to recreation. We did work through the business we were in last year, and council decided, as far as I'm aware, that we are in these types of businesses. I think the key decision then, Councillor Mallett, was, you know, how far are we into those businesses? Yeah.
Have we been collecting levies and things? I'm sort of a bit confused about the library issue.
Yep, so we have collected some development contributions for community facilities.
Which we're not allowed to do anymore, but we have from, yeah.
Yeah, so the legislation has changed. We can still collect them for parks and reserves of a certain type.
But these are
when
not
you start
parks.
talking about swimming pools and libraries, the legislation has changed around that.
And
But we
sports
have
fields?
historically collected those monies for community facilities. You know, it's probably, and Blair might be able to help me out here, or Paul, just around the use of DCs that we've collected historically.
I might go to Blair, DCs. We've collected DCs up based on the structure plan, haven't we?
We've collected DCs based on our previous long-term plans where we were able to, we had identified both the pool and the library as potential projects. So the DCs collected to date were collected under that regime quite legitimately. You'll recall in reports to the council last year, we have recommended and council accepted to stop collecting any further DCs on the pool and library until the outcome of the long-term plan process and infrastructure strategy is known. So once we know that, then we'll then know what to do with the proceeds collected to date.
And there was only collection of DCs for sporting grounds.
Yes, there was. Yes, there was.
And that's still allowed to be done, is it?
We can collect for land acquisition and elements of development of land, but it's quite restricted as to what we can do. So
Okay, so you initially started off saying we've been collecting DCs for libraries and pools. Now you're saying we also were collecting for sports grounds as well at the same
well, there's
time.
a number of elements to those community infrastructure development levies. The biggest portion was the pool and library, and of course, because they were removed and not part of this 10-year plan, there is risk that we continue to take them, and there's no process to put the to I guess apply the levies to. So we have to manage our risk in terms of continuing to collect for things that are not in our program and are not able to be collected under future legislation.
So we're no longer collecting them now.
No.
So what expectation would there be from out there for, and there's lots of levels of expectation. One's a moral, because it's our community, we're ratepayers, we should be getting these things. There's a legal thing that, look, when I bought this property, the developer said there was going to be a library because he's been paying fees. And
Certainly from those long-term plans, there would be a level of expectation. Certainly the 2009 long-term plan, if I recall, the 2012, we indicated they were unfunded projects.
Yep.
So it's really back to the 2009 long-term plan where there would be some expectation. And I think as part of this proposal Lance was talking about here, there are opportunities for us to apply those proceeds to other community infrastructure if we continue to deliver community infrastructure in the area. So we can utilise the funds collected for other community infrastructure in that particular area. So it's not just restricted to the pool and library.
And there's a very definite expectation by the main developer in the area that council will invest in and provide community facilities.
Who's that developer?
Kirkdale Investments. We're working through a comprehensive development plan process with them at the moment for the village area, which includes currently in the structure plan, library and aquatic facility, and the sports fields just above the aquatic facility location.
Okay, councillor King?
Just back to Blair, how much money's in the kitty collected from DCs?
Look, I'm going from memory. It's like, I think it's a good couple of $1 million in terms of the community infrastructure levies. But of course, against that, we've also purchased the land, and a portion of the land in the Rotorua area is for the purposes of these facilities. So there is offsets
Is it
against
the
that.
park opposite the school, is it?
Correct.
What is that? Sorry, Andrew, what's the name of the park?
It's not named
We haven't
yet.
named it yet.
From
Mallett's Park.
Mallet Park.
Right, councillor King, sorry?
From memory, Blair, in those DCs when we were collecting them 10 years ago, I don't think we specified an indoor recreation centre, did we? It was pools, library and...
It was specifically the pool and the library from
Yeah.
the 2009 long-term plan. So of course, when subdivisions gain resource consent, it's the development contributions applicable at the time of consent was issued that are charged. So of course, many of these subdivisions that have been built in the Rotorua area now date back to the 2009 development contributions policy, which had indicative pool and library in latter years. So development levies were taken on those projects quite legitimately and legally. Mm-hmm. The challenge that we face is that if we ultimately never deliver those projects, how do we account for the money that we have collected toward those? So working with Lance and Paul, obviously some of the other projects we're talking about here, such as the Indoor Recreation Centre, we can apply those monies collected to those from an accounting
So,
sense.
sorry, Blair, we made inquiry about this last year. I think you confirmed to us that because they're collected for community facilities, which was the legislation of the day, it changed last year, that community facilities include, we basically got to apply the DCs to community facilities, although collected for pools and libraries.
That's correct. That's
Because
correct.
we asked you to clarify from a legal perspective what the position was.
And they were collected for community facilities.
Yes, because that was the definition under the Act.
That is correct.
Right, okay.
Can I just clarify, the aquatic facility had a one court adjunct to it,
Oh, right.
and the principal requirements.
In the aquatic facility,
there was
it had a court?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
Yep.
is this the facility here that we're talking about?
No, it's the white bit.
The white bit.
Yeah,
okay.
so that those are courts, the grey bit, they're netball courts.
And will both schools be sharing that?
Yes. Yep. So the school's got, my understanding, one board of trustees, but two principals and two sets of administration.
Gosh.
Is it
Okay.
possible with
Go figure.
with excess of 2,000 pupils that they will need 4 courts till 6 o'clock at night and all day Saturday? So there won't be room for...
Possibly, but we would negotiate, as I said early on, a long-term arrangement that locked in the community use, which they would have to honour contractually.
The 120,000 a year ongoing costs, has that already been talked about with the Board of Trustees?
Not in any detail, we just alluded to a reasonably high-level operational model, and we've had APIS do a bit of modelling for us on how that would work, the amount of potential revenue, et cetera, et cetera. So we said that we'd be looking at a grant which is goes with the amount of community use that comes. If they said you're only going to get 10%, then we'd have to reconsider and, maybe only pay 10 grand a year or something. So, yep.
So they're building 2 courts. It's
Yep.
another 8 million to build another 2.
Yeah.
And we're proposing to put up 4 million
Yes.
in the hope that we can raise in that. Who's it on to raise the other 4 million?
We're hoping to encourage the Hamilton City Indoor Recreation Centre Trust to do that. We're in discussions with them. or council could, as we do for other projects, is actually look at raising that money in collaboration with the school. We'd have to look at what's the best model which is going to gain the most funding, depending, because some funders won't fund councillors, others will, and that sort of thing. So I think you'd look at horses for courses, what's the best model.
Thanks, Lance.
Right, any other questions on this item? Yes, councillor Gallagher?
Just coming back to experience around the country, is an option of, you talk about, around the governance issue around some of the stuff in terms of some board of which there'd be council representation. Is that an option? That is an option that could be out there?
It is, if council wanted to do that, but, my advice would be don't have a controlling share in that, because then it becomes a council-controlled organisation. But, the other models have very little governance input from council. Others have, like if it was a trust, then it might have 1 or 2 elected members or staff or whoever on it.
So you'd come back with some option and your recommendation in terms of what, in the end, what's best practice from a council.
Absolutely,
in terms of protecting a ratepayer investment, obviously. Yeah,
and Sport New Zealand and Sport Waikato are very active in this space now and giving advice to local authorities just on this exact issue about there isn't enough money going forward for councils and taxpayers to fund these things. It's got to be partnership with the community. So they're giving some very good advice on that now.
So the detail is, to me, if there's significant public money, both, obviously the Board of Trustees is accountable for its tax money and accountable to the Minister and can be biffed out by the Minister. But if there's the significant rates component, obviously we need to work through whether a memorandum of understanding with an elected Board of Trustees happens, or whether we're better to have some other model. That's you'll come back to.
Yeah. Okay. So we'd look at that and then make a recommendation to elected members on that.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right, councillor, there's no more questions. Sorry, yes?
So for $8 million, we get 2 more courts. We only have to put up 4 million.
That's the proposal.
If we go to the Te Rapa Sports Drome, for 6.5 million, we get 2 courts. So we're getting 2 courts a lot cheaper in overall cost. But it's...
In a facility, and Councillor McPherson might want to comment on this, which, has its challenges. Probably isn't optimal for various sports.
So they're not 2 extra courts.
But it is 2 extra courts, yes. Yes. There'd have to be some other, you'd have to look at the whole operation there too, because I think around changing facilities and what have you, and car parking, and in my view, the building's configured in an interesting way. It's probably not how I would have located it. But.
And then if we go to the WinTech model, the council only puts up 2.5 million.
Yes, but remembering that's, very much in the infancy discussion. To be fair on WinTech and the Indoor Recreation Trust, they've been through the scenario several times, so they're not keen on doing a lot more extra work unless there's some commitment from council. And I can understand that.
For the 2.5 million, how many courts do we get?
You would get 3. But bearing in mind that the other 5 would still have to be raised as well. And WinTech would be putting basically car parking and the land. But, I've told their GM that the land isn't an issue. And the regional sports facilities plan does talk about a 4-court facility in the northeast of the city and 1 in the southwest. Notwithstanding the fact that Avalon Drive is pretty accessible and it's reasonably central, so I'm not sure if that's a big issue. I think there's some flexibility around those recommendations. So I think probably the key thing is the opportunity we've got for the partnership with MOE at the moment, and it's something that this council's been discussing and other councils for a long time, and there's a real commitment from that Board of Trustees at the moment, and it could be a good exemplar of best practice across New Zealand.
Okay, so Lance, I just want to check with you, because we're going to move to a recommendation. On the A3 sheet, you've got a recommendation on the budget input, but you've also got on page 207 a feasibility study. So is your recommendation that and...
Well, I'd suggest, Your Worship, and just, going down where Councillor King was heading, and the discussion we had before lunch around Founders Theatre, that I think it would be prudent, if council's of a mind to commit some funding, is to actually go away and do more work and bring it back. So I think, there's a bunch of unknowns there, so we can do more work and bring really some options back. And you might find out of the 3 options that, we come back and say, look, one of them isn't a goer for whatever reason, or this one's moved on for this reason. And so I think that would be prudent to do that.
So are you saying then it's just page 207, number 1, or are you saying...
Both.
Both, yeah, okay, all right. All right. Someone got a motion? No? No one's got a motion on this?
Oh,
You want to put it?
yeah, I'll put one.
Where's
What
these
is it?
Eastward councillors?
Sorry, what is it?
I'm just saying, where are these Eastward councillors?
Well,
the
councillor Gallen, have you got a motion?
No, she's moved it.
What has she moved?
Have you not moved it?
Recommendation that council supports it.
Okay, so that's number 1 on page 207 and the recommendation on the A3 page. Is that what your motion is?
Yes.
And are you seconding that, councillor Gallagher?
I'm happy to second that for debate, yeah. Your
Okay.
Worship.
Sorry, apologies for coming to this discussion later. Just had a question about the feasibility study, if I may, and it may have been asked partially already, I'm not sure, and that is the need for a full-blown feasibility study when there's been, it's getting a little bit like the river plan, isn't it? There's been at least 3 studies that I know of in the last few years, and council's put money into them, which is fine. Isn't it just a sort of a desktop compilation of them and checking that all the facts are still current and things like that?
Yeah, so look, I don't see this as and that's why we haven't put a sum of money in there. We believe
You're not
that...
asking for any, is what you're saying?
Our staff and Matthew Cooper's staff, with some help from Sport NZ, can actually put this together, so I don't see this as comprehensive as, say, as the Founders one, which needs a lot of engineering and that.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit of work already been done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So essentially then it's bringing it all together
Yeah,
to
yeah.
confirm a cost
Yeah.
proposal.
Yes.
Yeah, no extra money's needed for you to do that. Yeah,
No.
okay, all right. Okay, so it's been moved by councillor Forsyth, seconded by councillor Gallagher. Do you want to speak to it, councillor Forsyth?
No, look, I think it's
Right.
been
No.
said, yeah.
Okay, anyone,
pretty clear
councillor
in the
Gallagher, want to
recommendations.
speak to it?
Yes, I mean, I think obviously it's always in the feasibility study, and it will be in the detail, and very clearly the second part becomes immensely conditional on getting the right arrangement. But around the country, I've seen some good examples, on face value historically of good partnership between central government and local government, and as we've discussed, one pocket is a ratepayer dollar, the other pocket's a taxpayer dollar, but if you actually can work together, then you're going to get better value. And certainly in terms of both the previous government and the current government, that is the trend that one sees, and it picks up all the local government New Zealand studies, and it picks up all the debate we've had in this chamber around getting best value. What I hope the study, and to me, this is very much conditional in my view on the bigger picture as to what else we can actually lever into that particular project. So to me, when you say pop-up library that the school will build but will give the public access with, say, us helping some funding for staff, then of course it's part of a much larger package in terms of potentially bringing to the northeast a range of facilities that of course they don't have roughly, compared with the rest of the city. I also it is my expectation in terms of that feasibility study, however, At the current time, Horsham Downs and Gordonton is not part of the City of Hamilton. And until that happens, one would want their local authority to actually come and talk to us, and in a reasonable way. And I think, we do that in a, dare I say it, in a, a good diplomatic way, because it's entirely reasonable that if you live in Gordonton and Horsham Downs, you're part of that particular sector, and you're going to get just as much advantage, from all of these facilities as you would if you live in Rotorua, Flagstaff, etc. So the devil will be in the detail, and I'm really looking forward personally to a very comprehensive report. And if the mix is right, then that's obviously something of a benchmark for us for future developments, dare I say it. I'll leave you with one thought, however, and I want to be crystal clear, and the Waikato University Performing Arts Centre is a classic example. If you went and did a survey and asked people, what did your council, through your rates, contribute to this facility, there'd be lots of blank looks. Because basically our signage and all of that stuff is pretty nebulous in there, and frankly, the university is our utter jewel in the crown, of course it is. But it is not acceptable moving forward that we don't have basic marketing and signage so that people who pay rates thoroughly understand that was a joint project. So that's the only sort of thing I would make, going forward.
Right, any other speakers for or against? Councillor King, you wanting to speak for or against?
Margaret, Councillor Forsyth, did you intend for the 120,000 to be on there, because you said the recommendation that's been put on the end? Did you ask for that, or it's not in the recommendations? You
Yes, it is. It's on the
Just not
A3
the
sheet.
quantum's not, but,
Yes, it is on the A3 sheet.
oh, okay.
Oh.
So I'm looking at-
sorry, I'm looking in the.
yeah.
It's in the supplementary paper.
So,
So
Lance,
I
we
put that-
clarified with you that,
Yeah.
is that what your staff recommendation is?
Yes.
Even though the conversation and the detail hasn't been sought yet.
We've had APIS do some ballpark figures. I think we're just reflecting what councillors talked about, setting parameters for staff to work within. So I think if we set some parameters to work within, then it helps us when we have those discussions and negotiations with other parties.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Forsyth?
Um,
And Councillor Gallagher, is that what you're attending?
I understand what you're saying, but I'm a little nervous that at this early stage about quantifying something as specifically as that, and then it all falling over if the sum turns out to be 140 or 150.
Do we put money in towards?
So I'm just here with the mover and the seconder. What do you?
Well, I think the CEO give us some advice on this, because the intent is clear. I think there's a consensus around this table to cautiously move ahead in terms of the project because of the opportunities it presents, both financially and in terms of community. But just give us a commentary on the detail in terms of audit and our flexibility in that.
So ultimately, it's like all information included in the 10-year plan. It's based on our best estimates and assumptions, and this is the best information that Lance has available to him at this point in time, and that's what he's recommending. 21-22 period, so when it finally comes to entering into the agreements, there'll be a lot of water under the bridge by that stage, and it'll be firmed up in future 10-year plans and annual plans should it change.
So I suppose then the follow-up question is it essential then to put the amount in, given that there's a few years to go, or are you asking for, you need some clarity around bookending it?
It provides completeness to the 10-year plan. We've got the operating costs in there. We've got the grant in there, and we acknowledge that there will be some contribution to operating costs. There has been some work that has fleshed it out, and I think it would be inappropriate not to include it.
Right.
Very good.
Bookending it so that
You
there's
advise
something
us
in the
to keep
budget
it in.
that
Right.
they can work to. So I think, Councillor King, that answers your question about the amount, because you've heard from the CE and the GM. Okay.
I was wondering with the Performing Arts Centre, do we put money into that on an ongoing basis, or do we only put money in on the original investment?
Ongoing.
Well, we entered into a very long contract.
Not that you'd know it.
That was my question.
You wouldn't know it, but we do.
I'm sure we've learnt
And it's
from that
more-
one as well.
It's more than that.
So councillor McPherson,
Yeah, just a clarification based on what councillor Gallagher suggested about the, which is a very good point about Waikato District being involved in any funding. I'm checking the understanding that any funding from them, or contribution, whether it's operating or capex, would go towards those amounts we're talking about there. So that's a local government contribution is the 4 million, is it? Would it not be, or are you talking about over
No,
and
there's
above?
still another 4 million needed, so the school's building 2 courts for 8 million.
Yeah.
The whole project's 16.
Okay,
Hamilton City would commit to 4 million, and then other local authorities and community funders, we would seek $4 million from them.
okay, that's fine. So the 120,000, I mean, I must admit, I'm like Margaret, a little bit nervous about the amount being specified. I think, you know, the area of contribution, yes, but the amount before you've done the study seems a bit cart before the horse. But would that 120,000, from what I've seen of that study, any contribution you say got from Waikato District towards operational costs, that would go toward, that wouldn't be over and above that, would it?
It might reduce that figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why, if
So-
you're mentioning the figure, it seems a bit,
Well, I think it's a bit like the discussion with founders. It's really about a provisional sum being in the LTP, rather than just having a capital figure and then there's no provisional sum in the LTP. Remembering that there'll be another LTP round before this actually, and a couple of annual plans before this actually got built. And when we come back with a feasibility study and potentially an MOU, draft MOU for councillors to look at, then you know, we would harden up on that figure.
okay, any other questions on this, or
Yeah.
people speaking for or against?
We
Simon?
just
Yeah.
keep going back to the Rototuna model. Are you going to keep an open mind about the other two and let them know funding's available, and let's see what your deal is? Are you
That's why we've
yeah, I
said
know,
do
but
the
you keep
feasibility.
defaulting back to Rototuna, and I'm concerned that you're
Right.
already,
Oh no, I'm very objective about this.
so you'll keep an open mind and keep negotiations going with
absolutely.
all three groups or anyone else who comes up.
But I think we need, at the end of the day, we need to look at what the needs are, and we need a 4-court facility, not another 2 or 3 courts. I think we make sure we don't lose sight of that.
Yeah, but my concern is 2,500 kids using this facility is going to gobble
Yep.
up a huge amount of the facility.
Understand that. So it's a bit
Before we
like
even get a bite at it.
it's a bit like the founders thing. We'll do a bit of a analysis around that, the bang for bucks.
I think the 2,000 pupils do come from the community. You know, so that they actually do make up the community. They might be at school during certain hours, but you know that they are the community as well. I don't think they're different groups.
most schools have a threshold time of
Day.
day at which it
Just
switches to
open.
community.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids morph, as you said, from school into club. They're just there until 7 o'clock at night, going from one to the other.
And it won't just be kids, your worship, it'll also be adults as well.
True. That's the idea. Are there any other councillors speaking for or against this? No? Okay, we're going to vote on the board for this motion. Okay,
Carried 11 votes to 1.
right, the next item is item 3, which is the Lido pool, and it's on page 201 of the December agenda.
we ain't spending any more money.
So Lance, are there any items you want to specifically speak to in this, or is it just, is it clear what
I just want to make one point, your worship, is, you know, similar scenario to the indoor recreation. Obviously, our work, Sport Waikato and other organisations' work has shown that there's a need for more aquatic facilities. A key thing that's come out of the regional sports facilities plan of Swimming New Zealand is that the recommendation now is that they're indoor facilities, so that they're not just used seasonally. Our partner pools program has been successful, but that's very seasonal, which provides challenges for swimming clubs and lane swimming. So the recommendation is that facilities are enclosed and warm enough for people to use during those winter months. The other thing we looked at was obviously affordability. Building a new aquatic facility is, challenging within the fiscal climate we're working within, but there is a need for another 25-metre indoor pool. So and combining, sort of looking at growth as well as using and looking after what we've got at the moment, our analysis of the different options has shown that the municipal pool isn't really an option. It isn't going to give all that good of functionality, and it's a very expensive option. And a number of councillors have seen all the background debate on that. The new aquatic facility at Rotatuna, $15 million around there, challenging within our constraints. Extending partner pools, many of those partner pools are probably, like a lot of pools in the Waikato and throughout New Zealand are nearing the end of their life. The big issue with pools is normally what we call the tank structure, the pool itself, getting to 45, 50 years old. And Waipa District are faced with those challenges themselves with their pool. So we've really looked at, the best option going forward is maximising our existing facility. We've got quite a central facility at Waterworld. We've got an outdoor pool there, the Lido pool, which provides, if you covered that in, and the way we would do that is actually put a roof on it, but actually have the sides so they can open up during the summer period, so that during winter they can still be used for lane swimming, for casual swimmers. It can be used for Learn for Swim, which actually we have a waiting list for at the moment, and actually provides significant income to our bottom line. And the other thing is that it can provide for swim clubs to use as well, who are finding it challenging, and especially when some of the partner pools are potentially looking at closing in the near future. So essentially we've recommended the upgrade of the Lido pool to cope with, in the short term, with the needs of the community, and longer term council will have to seriously consider another facility, and potentially at Rotatuna. Happy to answer any questions.
So just on the proposal, so by doing this, it means that the need for a new facility in the north is pushed out, because this will pick up that demand.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
By how much? How long?
We're saying probably 10 years.
Right.
10 to 15 years.
Okay. All right.
Probably 11 or 12.
Okay. Right. Are there some questions on this report? Councillor Forsyth?
Oh, thank you. Just some, because I'm a pool user, just some detail around the covering. Get that would be something solid, not with light penetrating through. Yes, or you haven't got that far ahead.
I'll refer to Matt, but my understanding it was a reasonably permanent structure, but has significant openings at the side. There's probably similar, if anyone's ever been to the aquatic centre at Rotorua District Council, they've got one which it opens up to all their outdoor areas, so in summer. During winter they close it obviously because it's cold outside and that sort of thing. They don't want to lose the heat.
Okay, so it's not...
Look, there are other options like bubble domes and things like that you pump warm air into and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
We've had a look at those. We believe something more robust would probably suffice better. It'd last longer. pretty better around installation, pretty bit down, the bubble things you couldn't open, you take them down in the summer and that sort of thing,
Yeah.
but, they don't look that attractive, the bubble ones, so.
So you're looking at a real permanent structure,
Yep.
so something that would be hard and you'd roll back as opposed to
Yep.
the bubble or something
Yep.
stick on. Or what, yeah, okay.
Okay, councillor Mallett?
Just a couple of questions. The Lido pool at Te Rapa, that's aesthetically quite pleasing as an outside facility, and I never have, but I've been out there regularly and see people having barbecues and whatnot. Enclosing it just wrecks the aesthetics, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a roof over it, so.
And to what, and I don't know if the report covers, there's a new covered pool, private covered pool being opened up on Victoria Street. I guess it's due probably mid this year, June, July. That's been factored into, well, I don't see it mentioned in here anywhere.
No, it's not, but we have factored that into our thinking, remembering that's going to be a private facility which
So,
is going to be reasonably high-end for the market.
yeah, my understanding is that they'll be catering to, and I could be wrong here, I don't know a heck of a lot about them, but that is where a lot of the demand is, isn't it? For, as opposed to pools as a plaything, the shortages in lane space for dedicated swimmers.
No, it's not what Swimming New Zealand, Sport New Zealand are telling us, that there's demand in casual swimming, which is just people going there and mucking around and having a swim. There is demand in lane swimming, whether it's the average Joe Blow just having a swim. There's demand for clubs, and then obviously there's demand for learn to swim as well. And the private pool, yes, it would probably pick up learn to swim, but it's also going to be, my understanding, it's going to have the gym and the country club type setup. A bit like at Stanley Street in Auckland, next to the tennis facility there.
Yeah, I just challenge it. My limited knowledge of swimming pools, just a little bit tangentially to the gyms, but was that the only way you make money in pools is with the learn to swim, the book, the triathletes practicing, the dedicated swimmers, those sorts of guys. And so that's where the demand is, that's where the shortage is. There isn't particularly a shortage for splash around for the kids. That's my understanding. I'll keep you wrong.
There is, if you look at our, if you've been to Waterworld over the past 6 weeks, we've been maxed out with the hot weather. And we're going to have to review that and look at what we do, and if we carry on having hot summers like this, we just, a lot of pressure on the facility just with the amount of people there. So yes, there is demand for lane swimming and learn to swim, but there's also demand for those other casual type of swimming as well.
But you sort of contradict yourself a wee bit, because it's busy when it's sunny, which you don't need a covered pool when it's sunny. So
No.
you're saying you're maxed out in summer, so you don't need any covering for a summer pool. I assume what you're saying is that you need the covering for winter when there's not all the kids there.
Yeah, well, we can't cope with demand in the winter when people want to do lane swimming, they want to do casual swimming, they want to do a whole bunch of things, water polo, etc., etc. So we have a shortage of aquatic space for the 5 or 6 different uses, and
That's sort of the point I was getting at. It's more it's the formalised swimming, for want of a better word, that's putting demand on your thing. It's very rare.
no, it's across the board. Yeah.
I think councillor Mallett, you've heard the general manager, whether you agree with it or not. The
Well, I
general
think I'm
manager
trying
is
to ask
saying-
some questions,
well,
just make
well,
sure
the
that he's
general
answering the
manager-
questions I'm asking.
Okay, so
And I'm trying to-
let me finish
yeah.
my sentence. The general manager
Well, I was
answered
speaking
you and said that Swim New Zealand and Sport New Zealand have provided the information, and on the ground, that's their experience. Now, you might not agree with that, but asking him 3 or 4 different ways just to get the answer you want. I mean, he's answered your question. If you don't agree with it, you don't agree with it. I mean, you can't change his answer. He's given you his answer. Have you got any other questions?
No, thanks.
Okay, councillor King.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship.
Tooman, sorry. Yeah, it was
I
Leo.
presume this Lido pool, when it's enclosed, would be heated in the winter, would it?
Yes.
Yeah, what would be the extra cost of heating that pool? Would you have any idea?
So you're not asking for any extra budget for that in this report, are you?
No, because we believe the revenue will cover it,
Right, yes, that's right.
because we'll have Learn to Swim. There's good money in Learn to Swim programs.
So have you done, so to answer councillor Tooman's question, can you just give some more, could we just stop the conversation there, so
Matthew,
councillor
our
Tooman can get his question answered,
Through
might
the
be
chair, if I
helpful.
could just comment on that. The plant room is already in place for the Lido pool, so for all the filtration and design of it and the chemical usage is already there. The only thing that we would need to put in place is an actual boiler to heat the water, because it's an unheated pool.
Yep.
It's the only cost associated.
So all the other costs are already in the operation of the pool complex,
That's correct.
right? And,
So there's a whole bunch of it, rather than having a new facility, there's a bunch of efficiencies there. We've got staff on site, we've got the plant, et cetera, et cetera. So,
right, so councillor Tooman, has that answered your question? Yeah, okay. Councillor King?
Yeah, we've got the outside facility. This is Hamilton, where we don't have a beach. The pool is not a 25-metre certified pool.
No.
It's not suitable for training, club training, that's for sure, because you've got to have a 25-metre pool. You don't want the kids learning to come over on their last stroke, do the tumble turn at 22 metres.
Yep. It's
a rounded shaped pool. It's a fun outdoor facility, which goes with an inland town. I'm all for pools. I've spent a fortune on swimming with my children, but why not come back with a proposal to build a 25-metre covered pool and leave what we've got? That's a fantastic thing alone. I'm not trying, I do understand we need more space. I do understand the facilities there. I'm all for expanding that facility because the plant rooms and the staff and everything's there, and it shows that if you put everything in one facility, there's a lot of cost savings by doing that. The land's there to do it.
All right,
It
so
just
the
seems to
question
me
is,
that
why not build another one?
don't you feel that we're
So councillor King, I think you've raised some good points. Why don't you build another one? If it's that in
at double the
demand?
price? I mean, we know it's gonna be,
25 metre
you know,
pool.
we know it's going to be
well,
8
you
million.
could do that, but it will be more, it'll be more cost.
Yeah, understand.
Yeah.
But you're not creating any more summertime space when the people who want to play and just splash around in the pools want an outdoor facility with barbecues, swimming, you've got sand pits, you've got
Yeah.
all sorts of play equipment and stuff there. It's fantastic. But why destroy what we've got that's really good?
Right, there we go. So there's a lot in that question, but
Well,
essentially, why
I
not
mean-
build another one? Why destroy the amenity value of the other one? It's not configured. It's a play pool.
So what we'd be doing is shifting some of the activity from the current pools we've got to the outdoor pool, so the less formal type lane swimming and that sort of thing, which frees up the 25 Learn to Swim pool inside and the 50-metre pool for those activities. And then you shunt that more casual swimming to the outdoor pool, basically. So that's the first part of the question. The second part, we were looking at cost-effective models. Building another 25-metre pool at Waterworld, yes, you could do it. The costs, I'll probably have to rely on Matthew for that. We have costed the pool at Rototuna, and if you were going to go to the expense of a new 25-metre pool, you might want to think about the recommendations in the regional sports facilities plan and where you actually have that. So you might actually do that at Rototuna. I know it's more efficient and cheap to have it at Waterworld, but it just means that then the northeast doesn't actually have anything. So if you had one in the northeast, you've got Gallagher's in the southwest, and then you've got Waterworld, which is reasonably central. Yes, you could do a 25-metre pool at Waterworld. I'm not sure what the costs of that.
not on that, but if you looked at the Lido pool itself, if you shifted the majority of learn to swim and all the recreational swimming outside, you've then essentially got a 25-metre pool for the lane swimming as well. So it does free up the space.
So what's your estimates on the Rototuna pool?
About 15.
15 million or thereabouts, right?
Yeah, I'd propose if you did it, Te Rapa would be a lot cheaper because a lot of facilities are there. And I know there are models around for 25-metre
Yeah.
pools for around about $5 million and enclosed in,
Apollo.
like tent-type structures, which are available on the market in New Zealand.
Yeah,
And
we've had a look at the Apollo pools and others, so you need to be fully informed about those. You need to make sure you get value for money and quality as well. I'm not saying they aren't
for the
quality.
same money as what we're proposing here, we can put in one of those at Te Rapa, as well as keep our outdoor facility. Because we've got the changing sheds, the facilities, the showers are there already.
Yeah, we'd have to go away and do some work on that. I can't give you those figures now.
Can you speak into the mic so that everyone can
sorry.
hear?
We'd have to go away and do some work on that. We don't actually have those costings.
Right, any other questions on this particular item? No? Yes?
Sorry, just a technical question. Have you, or would you be looking at roof/wall structures that can be completely removed? I mean, thinking a little outside the square and think the permanent roof that's stuck there, surely there must be technical options that can restore an outdoor pool when the weather's good. So, not something you change overnight, but,
I'll get Matthew to comment.
Sure. We've looked at the design of it for the walls to be sliding apart. So certainly there's technology out there that you can fold or push back the roof, but that would obviously increase the cost. But we haven't gone into any detail at this stage about what that would look like.
yeah, I guess I would like to see when something came back to us that what the options and relative costs were, because there is value in an outdoor pool in its own right for kids and families.
How busy was the outdoor pool over the summer period? It's been hot, admittedly, but
We've been at capacity pretty much every day.
outdoor with families coming with the barbecues, right?
Outdoor,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, look, Councillor, I just want to sidebar chat here. Personally, I'm not sure this is right, the way it is. And I sense a few others might be by the line of questioning. I think we're all recognising there's a demand and a need, but in what form that might be met seems to be some of the questions that we're all raising and umming and ahhing. And I want to just commend Lance and the team for, within the fiscal constraints, trying to come up with a solution that is the least cost option that meets those needs. So, I mean, that's the thing I want to say. But I'm not sure that this is right in this form, and I think we're sensing we might want to, if we're going to put the money in, should we be looking at just what are some of the other options, even though they might be a greater cost, there might be some other reasons why that might be a better thing to do. And while I take your point about, the standard size, you buy it off the shelf type of thing, which is what Councillor King is talking about, the council themselves haven't seen or understood what the risks are of that approach. So Councillor King will continue to say that is a good option without the rest of us having information that you perhaps have about why you wouldn't select that option, or it wouldn't be your recommendation to do that. So I'm just wondering how we might approach this one, because the other thing I would say is that it is important that when we put out the draft, that we actually are putting something out that people can have discussion about. Right? That's the purpose of it. Otherwise, we're not going to get back from the communities their views about, some option we've got to meet a need and a demand. Okay? So I think it is important that we've got something there, but whether it's this or not, I'm not sure. So Lance, I guess I'm within the time frame. back to the next meeting in February, given that you've said you have looked at some other options, can you expand on this paper to perhaps include those options to just widen the discussion a little bit? Is that doable?
Yes, it is. So we've had Opus do a bunch of work for us, and it was reasonably comprehensive, and they've looked at a whole bunch of different things. So,
Right.
so I think what Councillor King's brought up is nervousness around destroying the outdoor swimming opportunity at Waterworld, but taking up the efficiencies. If you had to need another 25-metre pool, could you do it at Waterworld rather than, you know, some big new thing at Rotorua?
Even if it's only for club swimming.
Yeah.
And also, it's
structured
life.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
what is the life of that? If
Yeah.
you pushed out the Rotorua pool,
Yeah.
I mean, is that a worthy investment in the short term when long
Yeah.
term you're always going to have the same issue coming back to you? How far are you stretching that out?
So bearing in mind we've got 3 weeks till the next meeting, I think it's pretty doable. We can, actually I was talking to the consultant from Opus just on Friday night,
Right.
and they're doing a bit of work for the Waikato district as well, so I think
Yes.
we could probably piggyback on her being in the Waikato
Right,
over the
okay.
next couple of weeks. So
All right, so just sensing around here, councillors, if we ask the staff to go back, we don't need to make a resolution on that. We can just not deal with this one and have it come back in February.
So we'll bring an
25.
amended paper back, Your Worship.
Are people comfortable with that approach? Does that, I'm getting nods here,
How,
yes?
how do you set the budget aside?
No, well, that's what I'm saying, we're not going to deal with that. We're going to look at it in February 25th of February, because we're asking questions that mean we want to have a bit more information before we look at any kind of budget option. Are you comfortable with that?
My
But
concern
we
is
can't
that
set it now because we want to look at some other aspects of this.
we're going through a list of allocating, from what I can see, to fill up the headroom
Yes, 'cause
of the spare money.
Well, because we passed that draft budget, yeah. That's why we've got the headroom, yeah.
So where does this, we're going through today, you basically using up all the money to bring it up to the
Well,
headroom?
not necessarily. Some of these options may not be accepted.
And just to clarify that a little bit further, you are not using up all the money if you go down to line 6. You're actually using up a portion of that money that's available in the tail years, so
Not all of it.
not all of it.
And
So
councillors
if
are
this came back at
cognizant.
a higher level, then we may have to look at the timing of it, but you may still be able to put that in.
So today, when we get to option 6 and we've used all the money up,
We haven't used all the
You
money.
will not have
Well-
used all of the money up, you will have used up, based on these recommendations, if you took 1 through to 6,
Yep.
you would reach the point where you've used up a portion of that tail.
Yeah,
But
but
some of these recommendations are also starting in year 1, which is much tighter.
there's people in this room who want to look at options beyond 6 today or tomorrow.
Like what?
Well, we've got a set amount of money that we can't go above, okay?
That's right.
And if we don't set aside this 5 million now, then that 5 million is there as we work down the list, and we can go down the list a lot further, which gets us down to, say, tourism funding.
Well, some of them are operational though.
Operational and impact on the first year, which is extremely tight.
Which is different from this, which is a capital expenditure in the capital budget. So we've got some clarity around that. Does someone want to clarify that again, please?
Yeah, so the point that's made is
You're
that,
not on, are you on?
yeah, sorry, the point that's made is the reason the line was drawn at 6 was not necessarily because we'd spent all the available wedge, as the CFO referred to it, at line 6. It was that the items after line 6 were operational in nature, and they're impacting on the balanced budget measure, not on the debt revenue measure. So that's why if we get to line 6 and haven't put in the aquatic centre and it comes back later on, it doesn't change our decisions for item 7 onwards.
Thank you.
Is that clear? Yeah. Okay. Yes?
At the risk of eye rolling, I'm just going to ask that seeing as we're going to come back now with some more options regarding our pool delivery, it is 6 years away, and there is a quantum of $4 million on the table. I just would like us to revisit the municipal pool option. I wonder if you could include that. I know we resolved to keep the pool closed, but the ultimate outcome of municipal pool, I understand, has still not come to a conclusion. That is another possibility for some sort of partnership, and it being 6 years away. It's been mothballed for some time now. That could be the opportunity for council putting up for, and the community, albeit Sink or Swim or some other entity, could come up with the balance.
So part of your report includes your recommendation on the municipal pool. So are you asking Councillor Forsyth for more information in the report they're going to bring back about the municipal pool? Because
I think we've had historically plenty of information. I think it would just be bringing it all together and throwing it on the table, sitting alongside the Lido option, a new 25 metre covered pool, possibly Rotorua by the sounds of it, and municipal. I mean, I'd like to throw it all on the table.
Well, we can extrapolate out option one, which is there with a bit more information. Pretty much all the work's been done by Mark Wassing and different people.
Yeah.
So we can add to that if you like, then you can weigh that up.
Thank you.
All right, so this one's...
Would you consider, if you were considering the municipal pool, for it to be covered? Because we're considering the other options of a covered pool, whereas my recollection is that the municipal pool is currently uncovered, but it's heated, I think.
I wouldn't be recommending an uncovered pool.
You wouldn't be... Okay,
No, that wouldn't be
so
my
it would
professional
a covered
recommendation.
pool. Yep.
No.
Okay. So then we're comparing like with like, I guess.
All right,
Yes.
so Lance, you're clear what will come back on the 25th, which is essentially this report
Yes.
with some of these other options that you've
Yep,
already
so-
considered yourselves and have the information on.
Flesh out the muni pool, outdoor, indoor option. I think they had those, and the other one is a standalone extra 25 metre pool at Waterworld.
Yep. All right, thank you. So this one is outstanding till the 25th. All right, the next, we might stop for a cup of tea and we'll take 10 minutes. Thanks very much.
We better go and do